addressing that task. So really, their salary might be appropriate, but the way it's coming out of their budget, that person, their salary falls out of 3 budget lines for both the lead of that department and also their assistant. So I think it'd be appropriate to align that compensation based on what their workload is, which is primarily in assigned counsel and not in the youth services division, which is right now where the primary of their compensation comes from. And this is kind of a longer term look, not something that's an immediate need. A lot of your there's a kind of a split among your peer counties in size, how many use an assigned counsel office and how many use a public defender office. So that's something kind of a long-term evaluation, particularly as there's an increased need for counsel at first appearance. Perhaps there might be an appropriate model of having public defenders or a combination of a public defender office and assigned counsel. And finally, taking a look at the Youth Bureau and Stop DWI departments, do they report the appropriate way right now, where they're both independent departments? Could it be possible that it might be a more efficient organization if they aligned? We took a look at maybe with the county health department, or alternatively group aging, veterans, and health in a health and human services organization. And again, we outline that a little bit greater detail in the report. And hit the slide here. Go on to social services. One of the things that make a kind of a high recommendation is adopting the Northwoods software. This would allow for the employees to work more efficiently. Right now, they have to bring the case files with them, return them back to the office, and what the Northwoods software would do would allow them to access any of their case files remotely using technology instead of schlepping around, in some cases, rather large files to and from a client's house or to and from an appropriate hearing. Reorganizing and renovating the DSS workspace. This is something that I know has been brought forward at other times, and this is something that the department has been looking at and has been able to make some changes in this direction, but as of when we were doing our interviews and looking into this, it had not been completed. So that would be something that they feel that the department feels that it could function more effectively if they were able to have some changes in their physical space to allow for workflow to move a little bit more quickly. And 2 other areas recommendations. One would be evaluating the fleet usage. There's the possibility there's some lost time in the department as people are going to and from the motor pool, and maybe there might be an easier way for that to happen. And finally, in the area of social services, is there a way to improve the customer service by flexing the hours to allow people who need to drop off papers or meet with a caseworker to be able to come at a slightly different hour? We're not trying to suggest a 24/7 operation, but maybe 1 or 2 evenings a week or a Saturday a month, that kind of thing. Oops. No quick question.
So now you know we're at the last slide. So 2 last areas that we include recommendations in the report. The first is on facilities. We know that this has been, remains a topic of discussion here in the county. I want to be clear that we're not making a recommendation on whether you should renovate this space or build a new one. Obviously, that is a completely different kind of study and requires input of engineers and architects and capabilities that our team doesn't bring to this engagement. However, what we do in the report is we identify some things that we feel pretty strongly should be on the county's radar screen as you're considering that. So I won't go through the entire list, but I'd like to highlight 2 of them. One is looking for a more coherent way of co-locating departments or offices that are synergistic with one another, that serve common constituencies, that require staff with common skill sets or common areas of expertise. It is, as you evolve as an organization over time, over years, typically you end up putting functions, offices, departments where you have the space to do it. However, if you are starting from scratch and building a plan, that's something that you should certainly have top of mind. The second thing that we talk about in the report is the opportunity, and this is really a funding opportunity, we feel, to leverage reimbursement possibilities as you renovate or build a new space. Certain county offices are eligible for certain forms of reimbursement. Social services would be one of them. So as you think about, moving an office, a department, an agency off-site, let's say if you're renovating this building, you can use that to kind of triage. Maybe you move a department that is reimbursement eligible off-site, so that you can get some or all of those facility costs reimbursed while you're renovating the space or while you're building the new space here. So just a couple of items from that list of recommendations in terms of facilities. And then the last recommendation area has to do with communication. So Steve alluded to this a little bit in the discussion about the county website, but when we talk about communication in this context, we're thinking more broadly. One of the things that most of your peer counties that we look at in the report have that Cayuga doesn't is a fairly robust communications arm. Whether that is in a dedicated, designated director of communications, or if it's not a director of communications, it is a staff member who really owns that responsibility as a primary responsibility, rather than kind of time sharing or job sharing it as the administrator or as the chairperson of the legislature. So that's something that we feel would benefit the county in terms of its external communication, being able to convey a consistent and clear message to residents and taxpayers of the community. But it also, as we've seen in some of your peer communities, it creates a two-way dialogue with your residents, with those who pay taxes and consume county services. That there's it contributes to a two-way conversation about what the county does for residents and what residents really want their county to do for them. So with that, we will stop and turn it back over to the chair.
Well, thank you very much for all your hard work and effort on this. What I would propose at this point is that we schedule a special meeting on April 4th, Wednesday, to let us all digest everything that's here. And then we can let the department heads and the administrator come through and have a discussion about what they see in this report and kind of prioritize what we should be doing going forward. But I would also open the floor to any questions that you would have from these fine folks from CGR. Mr. Dennison.
Surprised I beat Tim. Just out of curiosity, when you did your demographic study showing the population and whatnot, did you take that into account doing the complete study? If you could, I mean, could you tell, maybe you couldn't, that social services might decrease, increase, whatever, I mean, was that possible, I guess?
Is it possible? Well, I would say it's not possible to do in any kind of precise way. The challenge is oftentimes in communities where the population is getting smaller over time, or household income hasn't grown or has actually declined in real terms, right? Even if we have fewer individuals in the community, the demand for certain public services can grow. So sometimes there's an inverse relationship between the number of consumers and the demand for consumption. So it's a challenge, and it really, as we think about different service areas, we in all honesty, we didn't look at this from the perspective of what should Cayuga County look like in 2045, right? What we really tried to do was use your current structure, your current approach to delivering the services that you already provide and that in many cases you're mandated to provide, and try to identify opportunities to do that more efficiently or cost effectively. And again, even if opportunities to do it more cost effectively require you to get over some initial investment hurdle, we wanted to put those on the table for you.
Mr. Lattimore.
Well, I just don't want to let Andy down and not ask a question. This body spent about $20 million to upgrade our 911 system. I'd like, with the IT analytical brains that you have, whether or not, the microwave system going forward, right now we're thinking about burying about, 40 miles of cable, 400 miles of cable. Whether or not we should continue with microwave system, or whether or not we should, and save millions of dollars in the future.
And I think that's a discussion we probably should have on the 4th, once the department heads have a chance to look at this and make some sense of all of this. So,
He brought up IT as one of his.
yep.
I'd like to see on the big picture whether or not we should do some purchasing with our sister organization at the college, like phone systems, any other IT systems. They have an IT system up there that maybe we can share. We talked about finances, whether or not we can have a shared financial system or department with our college, maybe to save some money.
Yeah, I'll just broadly respond to the issue of potential collaborations. Intermunicipal, intergovernmental shared services were not part of our scope, but I will tell you that our team does a lot of this work for counties all over the state. In fact, Paul and Steve right now are leading the countywide shared services effort for Allegheny County. There are opportunities for you to collaborate with other, whether they're municipalities in the county or other public agencies. We haven't included those in the report. I can certainly provide that to the administrator and the chair to share. There were ideas that were raised during the course of our project that, again, because it was outside of our scope for this engagement, we didn't go into in great detail. But again, we're now in an environment where we have a countywide shared services initiative requirement that counties have to play a lead role on. And to the extent that we can help seed your knowledge on that, as you navigate that process, we're happy to do that. We can put some thoughts together for you.
I appreciate that. Any other questions? All right, you guys are off the hook.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Boy, you got away easy. All right, I did the minutes to approve, so now we're on to emergency resolution.
This is already passed. Authorization to amend the 2018 county highway budget for the bridge expense, Parcel Road, Town of Senate. It has been approved.
Any discussion on the emergency resolution?
Just a quick update for the legislature that the materials have been ordered, and as soon as that's here, we'll get out and get that problem fixed there. So the highway department's right on top of this one.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Can you make
sir.
sure everyone up there does this too, so we can hear?
Can you not hear me?
Yeah, now you can.
All right,
Now we
is that
can,
better?
when you speak into the mic.
right.
Sheila.
I was just,
Speak into the microphone. Thank you.
I was just saying by way of update that the materials for fixing the box culvert at Parcel Road have been ordered, and as soon as they're received, we'll be out there fixing that road.
So the emergency resolution has been approved by the appropriate people. But we can go back to public to be heard. Is there anybody from the public that would like to be heard? Please come forward. If you could state your name and your address when you come over here to the podium.
That always happens. My name is Connie Riley. I live in the township of Springport. I am a member of the County Parks and Trails Commission, and I am one of the 3 members who voted in favor of keeping the park user fee for the Prison City Ramblers car show at their present amount of $500 and not raising it to the $750. My reason for that is I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all situation. The Car Club has produced the Father's Day car show for 26 years, making it a long-standing tradition for families, the local community, and the central New York region. Club members have strived to improve the show every year, always making the enjoyment of the public their main goal. They have achieved this by working efficiently without the need of a support of an administrative department. They are purely dedicated to the people who enjoy the sight of an average of 800 magnificent classic vehicles on the shores of Owasco Lake, along with the nostalgia factor of Emerson Park and sharing family time while meeting new people every year. Car club members are people with histories and vision of what a community and a country can be. Many are military veterans of the Vietnam era and other conflicts. They are business owners and residents who have invested in their hometown. They simply want to share their passion for their cars and their community. They do not charge admission to their car show. Everything that they do for the car show is done by club volunteers. Their expenses include insurance and purchasing many trophies to celebrate the winners of each class of cars. They provide entertainment for children with activities provided by club members. All income from the food sales by a local restaurant and a few vendors is turned around and given to local Cayuga County charities yearly. As a member also of the Cayuga County Office of Tourism Board, I thank the Prison City Ramblers for hosting one of the largest yearly tourism events, which draws thousands of people to Cayuga County, and that produces very significant sales tax revenue. Please help keep the car show at Emerson Park in consideration of remembering that they keep the event free, welcoming, and friendly. And thank you for this time tonight. I have,
Thank you.
I have copies here if any members want them. Would that work? Okay. Great. Thank you.
Anyone else for the public to be heard?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Lattimore.
can we just follow up on that comment? I know that myself, Elaine, and Aileen were, I think, at a meeting at the parks, and I know that our park director, Mr. Trudeau, is here tonight. I think it was some of the board members and ourselves said that we'd come up with the difference in whatever fees they, as a donation, so I just want to throw that out, that we did have a cure for that situation. It was called money.
And typically, in the public to be heard, we don't respond, we just listen. So
That's my response.
if the legislature would like to make any kind of motion, I think it needs to come from the floor. So we have the emergency resolutions, we have appointments.
Motion to move them all.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And those are carried. All right, we will get right into resolutions. Mr. Bennett?
CC report.
Sorry. Sorry, President Durant. I guess you can come up and talk for a little bit.
Good evening, everyone. Just briefly, I want to first recognize Trustee Camardo with me this evening. Last month I talked in great detail about where we were as an institution, talked about our audit, talked about a number of things. So we continue to, work diligently in our advocacy at the state level. Hopefully this week or early next week, the state comes to an agreement on the New York State budget. Our advocacy all along has been very clear. We wanted to advocate for a change in the allocation funding model at the state level to be able to be more predictable and to be able to have more of a floor process that's not based on FTE. Currently as it stands today, really in the 11th hour, is in the single House bills, the Assembly and the Senate, they propose a $100 increase per FTE. And at this point, we need to focus our efforts on, we need that in the bare minimum. $100 per FTE for us will still be a loss in base aid from one year to from last year to next based on the way that it's allocated. But anything more than that continues to be more detrimental for us. So we'll appreciate your support in the closing hours here, hopefully, as they go through. And at this point, we're just looking forward for it to be agreed upon and enacted, so we'll be able to make our final budget decisions accordingly. We anticipate bringing to our trustees next month our tuition and fee schedule for next year. And it's unfortunate when we're in a time where really we have a loss of state aid and loss of support coming from other places, that we also have to be mindful of not putting too much in the backs of our students. So we're going to be looking at, we'll probably be looking at a budget proposal next year that we'll bring to you in May or June that will actually be down from from last year to next, or this year to next. But we're trying to be as responsible as possible with our resources. This past month, our Board of Trustees approved an emergency response plan for the institution. We've been working over the last couple of years at really refining our policies and procedures when it comes to emergency preparedness and emergency response. A number of things have moved its way through our governance structure and ultimately approval by our trustees. It's the timeliness of it, given what's going on in the nation, is certainly something that is important. And our commitment, obviously, is to try to be as prepared as possible and continue our education and trainings, both internally and externally. And we've been doing so over the last couple of months. We'll continue to do so in the future. The last couple of items, I update you every month. We're certainly, we're looking ahead already for next year. Both we talked about the budget, but certainly when it comes to enrollment. And as of today, our applications are tracking up about 3% for fall over last year. And as you know, last year when I was here, we were actually up 10% in applications from the previous year. So we continue to be up in applications and trying to be an attractive place for folks to consider for their post-secondary education. We held 2 open houses in the last month, one on the Fulton campus and on the Auburn campus, and they were well received and certainly have been a popular addition to our recruitment efforts. And then finally, as I mentioned last month, we do have a retirement in the executive leadership group at the college, and that's in our provost, Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Ann Herron. She'll be retiring in January. So the international search is underway. We're hopeful to have finalists on campus late April, early May, with hopefully a decision, by the end of May, 1st of June. So we'll keep you posted on the progress of that important search. It's our Chief Academic Officer position. It's the number 2 position in the organization and one that's very important for us for our future. So we'll keep you posted.
Thank you. Any questions for the president?
Thank you, everyone.
All right, we have committee reports and individual legislators' reports. Any reports? Mr. Lattimore.
Mr. Chairman, tonight was Memorial Night for the firefighters of the City of Auburn, and I know we were invited, but because of this conflict, I just want to give a shout out. I know our reporter and myself had the firefighters visit us at 4 o'clock in the morning at the Kings and Queens Court, and they did an excellent job airing out the situation. So I'd just like to give that shout out to our good men and women of the fire department.
I'm glad they kept you safe.
Well, more importantly, they kept Gwen safe.
He brought some good burnt pizza with him tonight.
All right, county administrators report.
Mr. Chair, March was National Ethics Awareness Month. So in commemoration of that, I've asked all the department heads to include any professional codes of ethics they have to share with you in our March monthly report. I also posted the ICMA, the International City County Management Association Code of Ethics, up in the office in case anybody's interested. I think it's really important that we set the tone to have an ethical, professional government, and that's one of the things that I'm hoping to do over the next many years, working with the department heads. We've been working with New Vision and broadband to figure out a solution to expanding broadband to a number of areas of the county. We continue to work with the city and on the drainage plan for Outback, and we hope to continue to have updates to you and also to the employees about how that will impact them during the construction. Several departments, including the Planning and Health Department, attended the HAB Summit at ESF this month. It was a very busy month on that front, but we're excited, and I think we're positioning ourselves well to make sure we're prepared to get our share of the money that affects all 3 of the lakes in our that are affected by these algal blooms in the county. We started kicking off our shared service planning this month, building on the work that Mr. Batman and the team did last year. Lynn Marinelli and Steve Lynch are the key staff people working on the planning initiative with me. I met with the town supervisors, with the mayors, with the highway superintendents, and we're getting ready to release a schedule of when those meetings will be over the next couple of months. I need a box that puts this up like this.
Get a 2x4.
I've also been meeting with a number of our elected officials at both the state and federal level in response to the flooding issues down south and continuing to advocate for political solutions. We've met with both our congressman's office as well as Senator Schumer's office. I met with State Senator Seward to talk about some of our legislative agenda in the state capitol. Our staff under Kelly, working with real property, have begun reviewing all of the county-owned real property. That was a joint project with the real property office, the legal department, the planning department, myself, parks and building, and we'll have a report soon. Next month? Beginning of next month? We'll have that report for you on all of the county-owned property, any property that's recommended to be declared surplus and disposed of, and any property that we recommend holding on to for municipal uses. We're also moving forward with planning for the solar field out at the property behind Soil and Water out by the jail. Steve Lynch and I will be out meeting with the power provider tomorrow to review the status of that project, and then Steve and Fred and I will be in Syracuse next week to review some of the legal documents about moving that project forward. As you know, we did have a snow day this month. There were some hiccups in the communication of that. Those don't happen all the time, but given that we live in a snowy region, they happen frequently enough that we should have a clear and written protocol for how those are dealt with. We've now rolled out with emergency management a electronic communication system that we've sent out to all the county employees where they can register to receive notifications at home in case of not just snow day emergencies, but any type of emergency communication we need to unveil. We're also taking the steps to register with the news agencies and put together a written plan for how we would need to get that information out to the press in the future. Just a couple other things. I want to introduce Doug Delastrito, our new Director of Parks and Rec, Parks and Trails, for those of you who haven't met him. Doug's been a great breath of fresh air on the team. I'm sure Gary's grateful to have an additional set of hands.